Tantor Audio presents Hunting Che, How a U.S. Special Forces Team Helped Capture the World's Most Famous Revolutionary, by Mitch Weiss and Kevin Maurer. Narrated by Robertson Dean. The Green Beret is again becoming a symbol of excellence, a badge of courage, a mark of distinction in the fight for freedom. John F. Kennedy, 1962 letter to the United States Army supporting Special Forces. Part 1. Many Vietnams. Prologue. 3 November 1966. The passengers on the flight were buckled in and braced for landing, crossing themselves and breathing deeply. Flying into La Paz was almost always a white-knuckle experience, and most of the passengers on the packed DC-6 were too busy praying to ponder the spectacular Andes views outside their windows. The pilots pointed the plane at the runway of El Alto International Airport, 13,000 feet up, the world's highest. They knew what to expect, but the blasts of wind off the mountaintops rocked the craft from side to side and wrung cries and shouts from the people in the seats. They'd come 1,500 miles from Sao Paulo, Brazil to the Bolivian capital, 3 hours of bucking and pitching. The air in the cramped cabin was clammy with fear. One man did not seem to notice the atmosphere of imminent death. He sat on the aisle seat near the front of the cabin, his white shirt and Windsor-knotted tie crisp and fresh. Adolfo Mena Gonzalez maintained the comfortable calm of a man whose plans are carefully laid, a man accustomed to being obeyed. He was a pudgy, clean-shaven, middle-aged man with black, horn-rimmed glasses and flecks of gray along the edge of his receding hairline. In his pocket was a Uruguayan passport. On his mind was his mission. He felt confident no one in Bolivia would recognize him. It was 13 years since he'd been there last, and he looked nothing like the unwashed young medical school graduate who'd passed through with a friend on a transcontinental motorcycle journey. They were scruffy kids then, carefree thrill-seekers. But that trip opened Gonzalez's eyes to the ugly sides of South America, country after country where a few wealthy people controlled the riches and resources while the rest struggled through lives of horrifying poverty. At the end of the journey, the idealistic young doctor changed his career path. He abandoned medicine to fight for social justice. He was coming back to Bolivia to take on the biggest challenge of his life. After 2 years of meticulous planning, everything was now in place. The cars he would drive, the routes he would follow, the remote farmhouse where he would live. He wasn't sure how long he would stay in Bolivia, a few months, a year. Much depended on the people on the ground. All he had to do now was survive this landing and make it through customs. The plane's wheels bounced onto the runway. The engines screamed. Gonzalez felt adrenaline shoot through his body. He pushed his glasses up onto his nose and nodded to Antonio Garrido, the white-faced man in the next seat, his comrade. When the cabin door opened, the men bounded off the plane into the glorious mid-afternoon sun. They breathed the thin air deeply and moved quickly from the tarmac to the terminal. A slim, sexy woman with long black hair approached them, her black beret tilted so rakishly down it covered her eyebrow. Heads turned toward her. Her high cheekbones and upturned nose singled her out as a European, and her clothing said she was a bohemian intellectual, maybe a poet or a sculptor. She trained her brown eyes on Gonzalez and embraced him like an old friend. Into his passport pocket she slipped a folded paper. The trio made for the security gates, and as the woman greeted Garrido, Gonzalez reached for his passport and opened the new document. It was invaluable. Exactly what he had hoped for. The Director of Information of the Presidency of the Republic has the pleasure of presenting Adolfo Mena Gonzalez, Special Envoy of the Organization of American States, who is undertaking a study and collecting information on the social and economic relations that prevail in the Bolivian countryside. The undersigned, who has presented this credential, ask all national authorities and private persons and institutions to lend Senor Adolfo Mena all the cooperation that they can in order to facilitate his research effort. Signed,